All right, here we are to read chapter 14, Cousin Kristoffer of Selma Lagerlöf's book, The Saga of Gösta Berling. Chapter 14, Cousin Kristoffer. They had an old bird of prey up in the cavalier's wing. He always sat on the chimney corner, keeping watch so the fire did not go out. He was ruffled and gray. The little head with the great beak and the lifeless eyes leaned sorrowfully on the long, emaciated neck, sticking up from a bushy fur collar. For that bird of prey wore furs both winter and summer. In times past, he had been part of the swarm that swept across Europe in the wake of the great emperor, but nowadays no one dares say what name and title he bore. In Värmland, it was only known that he had taken part in the great wars, that he wreaked dreadful havoc in thundering battles, and that after 1815, he had to take to his wings away from an ungrateful fatherland. He found refuge with the Swedish crown prince, who advised him to disappear in far-off Värmland. The times were such that he, whose name caused the world to tremble, must now be happy that no one knew his once feared name. He had given the crown prince his word of honor not to leave Värmland and not to mention who he was unnecessarily. And so he was sent to Ekeby with a personal letter from the crown prince, who recommended him most highly. Then the cavalier's wing opened its doors to him. At first, there was much speculation about who the notorious man hiding under an assumed name was. But by and by, he was transformed into a cavalier and a Värmlander. Everyone called him Cousin Kristoffer, without really knowing how he got that particular name. But it is not good for a bird of prey to live in a cage. It is understandable that he is used to something other than jumping from perch to perch and taking food out of his caretaker's hand. In times past, the incitement of slaughter and mortal danger set his pulse aflame. Then somnolence of peace revolts him. The somnolence of peace revolts him. It is also true that the other cavaliers were not mere domesticated birds either. But in none of them did the blood burn as hot as in Cousin Kristoffer. A bear hunt was the only thing capable of enlivening his slackened lust for life. A bear hunt or a woman, a particular woman. He livened up when, 10 years earlier, he had seen Countess Märta, who by then was already a widow, for the first time. A woman changeable as war, exhilarating as danger, a sparkling, extravagant being. He loved her. And now he sat there getting old and gray, not able to ask her to be his wife. Now he had not seen her for 5 years. Little by little, he was withering and dying, as captive eagles do. With each year, he got drier and colder. He had to creep farther down into the fur and closer to the fire. So there he sits, freezing, ruffled and gray, the morning of the day on whose evening the Easter firecrackers would be shot off and the Easter witch would be burned. The cavaliers are all out, but he is sitting inside in the chimney corner. Oh, Cousin Kristoffer, do you not know? Smiling, he has arrived, the enticing spring. Up leaps nature from indolent sleep, and in the blue sky, butterfly-winged spirits tumble in boisterous play. Thick as roses on a wild bush, their faces glitter up among the clouds. The earth, the great mother, is coming alive. Giddy as a child, she rises up from her bath in the spring flood, from the shower of spring rain. Stone and soil glisten with desire. Into the circle of life rejoices the smallest of things. We will journey as wings in clean air. We will shimmer in the blushing cheeks of young girls. The lusty spring spirits swim on air and water into bodies, quiver like eels in the blood, set the hearts swaying. It is the same sound everywhere, in hearts and flowers, in everything that can sway and tremble. The butterfly-winged ones cling tightly and ring it out as with 1,000 toxins. Joy and delight, joy and delight. He has arrived, the smiling spring. But cousin Kristoffer sits quietly, understanding nothing. He leans his head against his stiffened fingers and dreams of showers of bullets and of honor grown on the fields of war. In his mind's eye, he conjures laurels and roses that do not need the feeble beauty of spring to blossom. It is too bad about him, though, the lonely old invader, sitting up there in the cavalier's wing, without a people, without a country, he who never hears a word of the language of his homeland, he who will have an unmarked grave in the churchyard in Bro. Is it his fault that he is an eagle, born to pursue and kill? Oh, cousin Kristoffer, you have sat dreaming in the cavalier's wing long enough. Get up and drink the sparkling wine of life in the high castles. Know, cousin Kristoffer, that this day a letter has come to the major, a royal letter stamped with the seal of the realm of Svea. It is addressed to the major, but its contents concern you. It will be marvelous to see you as you read the letter, old bird of prey. Your eye will begin to shine and your head will be raised. You will see the door of your cage open and free space granted to your longing wings. Cousin Kristoffer is digging deep down at the bottom of his clothes trunk. Then he anxiously pulls out the stored gold-laced uniform and puts it on. He presses the plume-adorned hat on his head, and soon he is fleeing Akeby, riding on his splendid white saddle horse. This, however, is something different than sitting frozen in the chimney corner. Now he too sees that spring has come. He raises himself in the saddle and sets off at a gallop. His fur-lined dolman flutters. The plume of the hat sways. The man is rejuvenated like the earth itself. He has awakened from a long winter. Old gold can still gleam. The bold warrior's face under the three-cornered hat is a proud sight. His ride is remarkable. From the ground, brooks spurt and anemones spiral up where he rides along. The migrating birds shout and rejoice around the released prisoner. All of nature takes part in his delight. Magnificent as a triumphator he comes. Spring itself rides ahead on a floating cloud. He is light and airy, a spirit of light. He has the crumhorn at his mouth and bubbles with happiness as he moves up and down in the saddle. And round about cousin Kristoffer, a troop of old brothers in arms, caracoles their horses. There is fortune standing on tiptoe in the saddle, and honor on its stately courser, and love on its fiery Arabian. Remarkable is the ride, remarkable is the rider. The polyglot song, thrush, calls to him, cousin Kristoffer, where are you riding? Where are you riding? To Borg, to propose, to Borg, to propose, answers cousin Kristoffer. Don't go to Borg, don't go to Borg. An unmarried man has no sorrow, shrieks the song thrush after him. But he does not listen to the warning. Uphill and downhill he rides until finally he arrives. He leaps out of the saddle and is led in to see the Countess. Everything goes well. The Countess Märta is gracious towards him. Cousin Kristoffer sees that she will not refuse to bear his glorious name or rule at his castle. He sits delaying the moment of rapture when he will show her the royal letter. He enjoys this expectation. She talks and entertains him with 1,000 stories. He laughs at everything, admires everything. But as they are sitting in one of the rooms where the Countess Elizabeth has hung up Mamselle Marie's curtains, the Countess also starts to tell the story about them. And she makes it as amusing as she can. Look, she says at last, see how wicked I am. These curtains are hanging here now so that I will think about my sin daily, hourly. It is a penance without equal. Oh, these horrible scalloped curtains. The great warrior, cousin Kristoffer, looks at her with burning glances. I am also old and poor, he says, and I have sat in the chimney corner for 10 years and longed for my beloved. Do you, gracious Countess, laugh at that too? That is another matter, the Countess exclaims. God has taken fortune and fatherland from me and forced me to eat another's bread. Cousin Kristoffer says seriously, I have had to learn to have respect for poverty. I have. You too, cries the Countess, holding up her hands. How virtuous people are. Oh, how virtuous they have become. Yes, says the man, make note, Countess, that if one day God were to give me back wealth and power, then I would make better use of them than to share them with the sort of worldly woman, the sort of made-up, heartless Jezebel who makes a joke out of poverty. You are right about that, Cousin Kristoffer. And then Cousin Kristoffer marches out of the room and rides home to Ekeby again. But the genies do not follow him. The song thrush does not call to him, and he can no longer see the smiling spring. He comes to Ekeby as the Easter firecrackers are to be shut off, and the Easter witch burned. The Easter witch is a large doll made of straw, with a face made of rags on which eyes, nose, and mouth are drawn with coal. She has on the pauper's discarded clothes. The long shafted oven rake and broom are set beside her, and she has the butter horn around her neck. She is ready for a witch's ride. Major Fuchs loads his shotgun and fires it straight up in the air, time after time. A bonfire of dry sticks is lit. The witch is thrown on it, and soon is burning lustily. No doubt the Cavaliers are doing all they can to destroy the power of evil in an old, proven manner. Cousin Kristoffer stands watching with a gloomy expression. Suddenly, he pulls the great royal letter out of his sleeve and casts it on the fire. God alone knows what he was thinking. Perhaps he imagined that it was Countess Marta herself who was burning over there on the bonfire. Perhaps he thought that because of this woman, when all was said and done, was only made of rags and straw. Perhaps he thought that because this woman, when all is said and done, was only made of rags and straw. Oh, got to get over this hill. Let's start this sentence a third time. Here we go. Perhaps he thought that because this woman, when all was said and done, was only made of rags and straw, that there was nothing of value left on earth. He goes into the Cavalier's wing again, lights the fire, and hides his uniform. He sits down again in the chimney corner, and with each day, he becomes more and more bushy and gray. He is dying little by little, as old eagles do in captivity. He is not a prisoner anymore, but he does not care to make use of his freedom. Space stands open to him. Battlefields, honor, life await him, but he no longer has the strength to spread his wings in flight. Oh, that's a sad story about Cousin Kristoffer. He found out that the woman of his dreams was not what he perhaps had imagined. So it goes. That was chapter 14 of the Saga of Gösta Berling about Cousin Kristoffer. And next up, we're going to have chapter 15, The Paths of Life. Stay tuned for chapter 15.